Okay, I'm very happy. I am joined today by Jeff Maggioncalda from Coursera. You are the CEO. Maybe you can share a little bit about what you do and what Coursera is.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me. So Coursera was founded in 2012 as an online learning platform, and it has become a global online learning platform. The company was started by a couple of professors from Stanford who teach computer science, Daphne Kohler and Andrew Ng. And they put a couple of their most popular on-campus courses online in 2012 for free. And hundreds of thousands of students from around the world came and started taking these classes. They were not Stanford students. They were just people from all around who wanted to learn about, this was on AI and machine learning. And that prompted them to say, you know what, with the technology that's available now in 2012, we can create a company that makes high quality online learning available to everybody in the world. And so what they did is they got Stanford and Duke and Penn and Michigan and a bunch of the top schools to collectively agree to start building online courses. And since 2012, we have our partners, 150 universities and 50 companies like Google and IBM and Microsoft and Facebook. They've put together over 4,500 courses that are available now to learners around the world. And we have 76 million learners who are registered on Coursera and taking courses. So it's really been a wonderful experience to see this idea that started in a university become something that is now transforming higher education.
Very good, very good. So I guess the question that everyone wants to have an answer to is how is the job market going to change? What has the impact been of COVID and the coronavirus? And has this accelerated some of the trends we've already seen for a long time? So what's your assessment on the overall jobs market and how things have changed over the last few years and how they're going to change?
Well, maybe we'll start with what was happening prior to COVID, which is a really rapid acceleration of companies deciding that digital business practices and kind of digitizing their businesses is going to be key for them to keep up. And the basic idea is quite simple. More and more consumers and more businesses are online, and they're looking to buy services online. You find consumers online. There's an increasingly global supply chain, which has been digitized so you can get your sourcing from all over the world. And so businesses really are being run more and more on data, and they're being run more and more on the cloud. And they are also being run by global workforces. And so there's been this real strong trend of technology, digitization, and globalization that's been happening. And what COVID has done is it has only accelerated companies' interest in trying to automate processes and move their employees into more digital roles. And so we've seen, especially, and we've seen it in the UK, we've seen it in the US, all over the world, especially those jobs that are more frontline manual jobs that have personal contact, whether that's in hotels or transportation or personal services. Those jobs have really been impacted severely. The International Labor Organization estimates that about 300 million jobs are at risk due to COVID. And the University of Chicago estimates that of the job losses on the front lines, perhaps almost 40% of those jobs will not come back, that those will be automated. So people need to learn digital skills to get the new digital careers that are going to be coming in the future years. And I think online learning has a big role to play in helping people learn those skills to get those new digital jobs.
Very good. There's so many things we could talk about now. Obviously, there is a clear shift towards technology. Tech savviness is so important. Data literacy is really important. Um, if we look at some of the major skills that you predict people will need in the future,
Mhm.
what would you say those are?
Yeah, we sometimes say at Coursera that skills pay the bills. So definitely, I mean, there was a time when people talked about lifelong learning as something that's good for you, sort of like exercise. And it is good for you to always be learning and always be curious.
Hmm.
I think what's changed in the last 5 or 10 years is that lifelong learning is not just something that's good for you. It's something that you're going to need to do if you want to maintain a job. So I would say that the top skills that people need to learn are those skills associated with jobs that people want to have. And so we often look first to the jobs and say, well, what are the big emerging jobs that are going to be in high demand and will be difficult to fill for employers? Because people who have the skills to do those jobs are the ones most likely to find good employment opportunities. The World Economic Forum just put out their 2020 Future of Jobs report. And what they talk about is the top 10 jobs in terms of how fast they're increasing in demand across all industries. Number one was data analysts and data scientists. Number two was artificial intelligence and machine learning specialist. Three is big data specialist. You can hear the data theme in all these jobs. Four is digital marketing and strategy. Five is process automation. Six is business development professionals. Seven is digital transformation specialists. So it's all data oriented. As the world in business becomes data fluent, and that's the really lifeblood of business, businesses are looking for people who understand how to use, manipulate, make decisions based on, and present data.
Yeah, very good. And this is the point I make with all the companies that I work with as well. And I think it's really important to understand that this is not just for the data scientists. We won't just have data scientists, but every job will have a digital component, will have a data component to it. So that I think just improving the general understanding of all of this across all jobs is really important.
It really is. So the World Economic Forum, in that Future of Jobs report, they did a survey of employers all over the world. They broke it out by country. In the UK, the estimates from World Economic Forum suggest that 61% of the active population have, quote, digital skills, kind of are fluent in that kind of digital skilling. But when you look at the impact of COVID on company strategies in the UK, 94% of companies said that they would accelerate the digitization of work processes as a result of COVID. 91% said they're going to provide more opportunities to work remotely. And 66% they're going to accelerate the digitization of upskilling. The way that they teach people new skills is also moving online.
Very good. And do you think that overall this digitization will have a net positive impact on jobs, or do you have concerns that we might run out of jobs at some point?
Well, I think in the longer run, essentially what robots were able to do is replace, like in the industrial revolution, very repeated physical tasks that required no cognition at all were automated with machines. And that put a lot of the muscle related jobs to the machines. To some degree, what artificial intelligence and machine learning can do is not only automate jobs that are cognitively predictable. So if there's something that is sort of predictable in terms of how you make a decision to do something, a lot of that will probably be automated by computers and artificial intelligence. And when you put robotics and sensors, this is the ability to physically move products and sensors that have a sense for their environment, and then you add to it artificial intelligence, you find that machines, whether that's self-driving cars or whether that's robots in a warehouse, they're more and more able to do more and more of the things that humans do. So I believe that increasingly, computers and machines will be doing more of the work that humans have done. There are a lot of creative jobs and a lot of collaboration and, I think, care-related, empathy-related jobs that humans will continue to do. But basically, McKinsey has done a big study. They suggest there'll be a slight net gain in job openings. World Economic Forum suggests that there will be a slight net reduction in job openings. Some jobs will be automated and new jobs will be created. But the biggest point that I really focus on is that the people who have the jobs that are going to be automated do not currently have the skills to get the new jobs that will be created. And that's why when in the UK, when they answered the survey on World Economic Forum, 98% of companies said they're going to retrain existing employees to get those digital skills, because there just aren't enough opportunities out there. If people don't reskill, then we're going to simultaneously have very high unemployment rates and also unfilled positions. So the only way to bridge that gap is through education.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In terms of what it means for people in their careers, then one of the points I always make is that at the moment we're going through this process where careers are changing. There is no longer a job for life.
Mhm.
Um, there's a big impact on the education system as well, because at the moment this whole front-loaded education is going to change because skills, especially around digital, are changing so rapidly that lifelong learning will become a major part of all of this. So, and the other big trend I'm seeing is around what we call gig economy. I don't particularly like the word, but people will be, I think, more masters of their own destiny, where you accumulate your own skills and you're responsible for making sure you have a portfolio that will be in demand in the future. So what's your assessment on this, on the impact on individuals and their jobs, and maybe also the impact on the education system and how this needs to change, and maybe your role in all of this?
Well, great. I think you're spot on. And again, the underlying cause that lifelong learning is going to be important, and to your point, education is going to change, is that things are moving faster and faster. New technologies are emerging faster. The skills to use those new technologies are emerging faster. And so going to college when you're 18, 19 years old and thinking that what you learn in college will serve you for the next 40 or 50 years is just no longer tenable. It's just not realistic. The world is moving too fast, and businesses will be looking for people with new skills. So, what that means is lifelong learning will be an imperative. I think it is very likely that people will still get college degrees because they are intensive periods of time where people learn certain skills and knowledge and they socialize that with other people. It could be on campus, but it could also be in a virtual environment. On Coursera, we have 25 fully accredited degrees from our partners that can be learned online. But to your point, there will be on ramps to college degrees before you go to college. And we have a number of these. We call them entry level professional certificates. These are programs from Google, from IBM, from Facebook, from Salesforce, from Intuit. They're professional certificates that take about 6 months. They do not require a college degree. They do not require any background in the field. And they can help you get job ready for an entry level role in data science, in cybersecurity, in bookkeeping, in UX design, in software program management. Lots of these entry level digital roles you can get without a college degree. So I see a lot of people getting these online professional certificates, getting into an entry level digital role. And then while you're working and making some money without going into so much debt, you'll then be able to start a college degree online if you want to. And then once you finish your college program, if you choose to go to college, I think that the future of higher education is going to be much more flexible, modular, and online because people will not quit their jobs to go back to a campus for 2 or 3 years to get a degree. They won't be able to afford being out of the workplace or moving their family, and they won't need to. So there'll be much more flexible, bite-sized, modular certificate programs that can add up to degrees or master's degrees. But that's going to be something that people essentially experience over the course of their working careers because their jobs and employers will demand it. And the role that Coursera will play, of course, is getting all the content and credentials that are required for all these jobs and making them available directly to individuals. As I mentioned, we have 76 million individuals now, but we also have Coursera for Business, where 2,400 businesses have hired us to help upskill their employees. We have Coursera for Government. Governments are doing upskilling and helping people get reskilled for new jobs. And we also have Coursera for Campus, which is helping universities around the world provide online content to their students in a very quick changing world, often where campuses are closed because of COVID.
Interesting. So my belief is that actually college degrees will become less important, at least the traditional college degrees that we have at the moment. And do you agree with that?
I'm not sure. I mean, the thing about it is, um, if you think about it sort of as an economist, if you have increasing rates of unemployment, in other words, you have a relative surplus of talent and fewer jobs that are available, I think that what people are going to want to do is they're going to want to distinguish themselves from each other. And so there's a question of how might one distinguish oneself? Clearly, by learning new things, you distinguish yourself. But I think a lot of employers will want to look to, hey, if I can choose between two potential employees and one has very distinctive credentials and one does not,
Mm.
I will probably lean towards someone who has more stacked credentials, who has, taken many courses of study. Through that college degree, not only do you signal that you have certain skills, but you also signal that you got into a very selective program. And so I think the competition among workers to distinguish themselves for these jobs will likely mean that someone's going to choose, I'm going to get a degree because on top of everything else, that will help me be more attractive in the job market. Now, I do think degrees are changing rapidly. The degrees on Coursera, already they're less expensive, they're fully online, they came from the same professors, you still get the same diploma, but they're sometimes half the price, and they're often broken into modules, so you don't have to do the whole degree at once. From anywhere in the world, you could do a part of a degree, you get a certificate for that, and then if you get a few more certificates, the university will actually grant you the full degree. So we're going to see degrees that look very different in the future than what we're seeing today, and we're already seeing the starts of that on Coursera.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was thinking as well. That I think the traditional degree that is completely front loaded, where you spend 2 years in a university and then that this is it, will change to a model where you get some really good input in the beginning, but then the university really hopefully stays with you throughout your life and make sure that you deliver this. So do you see this partnership model between universities and Coursera to then deliver that sort of model in the future?
Absolutely. So we are already seeing universities creating courses on Coursera that are being used by students in secondary school. So before they go to college, they're already starting to take some university courses and starting to see some of the professors. And of course, some of this is branding and awareness to create a pipeline of students who might want to matriculate into the university. On campus, we see students using online. And of course, there are many students taking these degree programs who never go to campus. We're also seeing a hybrid where I think you're right. You can do all 3 or 4 years fully online, but optionally, if you want to go to campus for a few of those semesters to do some of the social learning for a part of the degree, you can go on campus. So we are seeing all sorts of mixing and matching of on campus and off campus. And then to your point around alumni, I like to say that the historical business model for higher education has been transactional. You basically go for 4 years, you pay a lot of money. Once you're done, you get a certificate, and then you're an alumni, and maybe you give some money. But for the most part, it's not a long-term relationship. I think that what lifelong learning will force for individuals is they're going to need to learn for the rest of their life. And the opportunity that creates for universities is the chance to really recast the business model from a 4-year transaction to a lifelong subscription.
Mm.
Because why wouldn't a university want to be your lifelong learning partner as the world changes? You have a community that you are familiar with, and you can continue to go back and learn in these bite-sized pieces. And your degree is never really done. You're
Mm.
always getting these micro credentials and kind of rounding out your portfolio skills as the needs change. And I think that creates a great opportunity for higher education.
Very good. The other trend I'm seeing is that we are now moving into this globalized workforce. I think that has been again accelerated during COVID, where people needed to work from home. And I think as a consequence, what companies have realized is actually people work very effectively from home. They now have put the systems in place to allow this. And then suddenly they realize actually in the past, if Google wanted to employ a data scientist, they looked around in Silicon Valley. Now they can employ from anywhere in the world. Do you see that as well? And do you see this as a big transformation in the jobs market?
I see it personally firsthand. So I was one of those very old-fashioned CEOs. I've been a CEO for almost 25 years now. I always believed that everyone had to come to the office. That's the way to get work done. And I think to a large degree, I wasn't wrong, 20 years ago or maybe 15 years ago. The technology just wasn't there. I wasn't a big believer that hopping on a conference call and everybody being on telephones was going to allow the same kind of collaboration and creativity that we would need to be competitive. So I was always a big believer in, you come into the office to get your work done. Obviously, with the pandemic, and for us, it was on March 6th, everybody decided, we decided everybody globally should work from home at Coursera.
Mm.
Now, we were already using Zoom. We were already using all of the G Suite set of Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides. everything was already digitized. Everybody had a computer. Everybody had their own Zoom account. And so we were already working online. We happened to share the same space. But when we moved remotely, we had almost no interruption. I think everyone felt a little lonely. Everyone missed the socializing. And there are definitely some parts of creativity and innovation that happen through the serendipitous socializing that happens. So I do think there is a role where people physically coming together to socialize, to celebrate, and to create will be important. But we've totally switched it upside down. We used to have fewer than 10% of our employees working remotely. Now we believe that within 3 years, fewer than 10% of our employees will be expected to come to an office 5 days a week. About 40% will never come to an office. They'll be fully remote, and probably 50% will come in 1, 2, or 3 days a week. And we believe that that's the way the world's going. And if an employer like Coursera says, yes, you have that flexibility in your life, and we can tap into a global talent pool, and we're competing with another company who doesn't give the employees that kind of flexibility and who cannot tap into a global talent pool, I think we're going to outcompete them. So I look at this as a matter of how do you get the best talent to be most productive? And I think that model is going to win. And that model is going to be it's going to have a heavy reliance on remote work.
I completely agree. One of the challenges that when I speak to other CEOs, one of the challenges they articulate and face at the moment is how do you maintain the right organizational culture when everyone is at home? How do you do this at Coursera? Do you have any good tips or any advice on actually creating a unique company culture and making this happen when everyone is working remotely?
Yeah, well, without getting too sort of conceptual about it, when I think about culture in human culture over human history, as well as in corporate culture, I think of culture as being the beliefs that people have about why they are at the company, why the company exists, a belief about what the future of the company is going to look like, and the way that that company is going to make the world a different and better place. So there's a shared sense of beliefs. There's a shared sense of behaviors, which is the behaviors that I exhibit. And then there's also the experiences that people have, which is their experience of the behaviors around them. This all creates culture. Beliefs and behaviors and experience is what creates culture. And I think what really has to happen when you have a distributed workforce is that companies must be more intentional and strategic about what are the beliefs that we have and want to share that bind us. What are the behaviors that are institutionalized about how we communicate, how we set goals, how we reward people, how we hire people and onboard people and train people, and how do we celebrate? And then there's a lot too around how do we handle, people whose behavior is different than what we want. So I think it needs to become much more intentional and strategic. And then people need to build the processes. And in my view, in a world where we're physically separated, the need to communicate is much higher than it was before. So we used to have monthly all hands meetings. Now we have weekly all hands meetings. My staff used to meet once a week. We still have a weekly exec staff meeting, but we have 3 times a week. We were doing daily. We cut it down to 3 times a week. We do a check-in, just 30 minutes on Zoom. How's it going? What's going on? With open agendas. It doesn't always need to be so structured. I do skip levels. I interview everybody that reports to my direct reports once a quarter. And these skip levels have become more and more important to make sure that there's this emotional relationship connectivity that spans layers of the organization. So many different practices to create that social connectivity and that sense of belonging and purpose are going to be needed to hold a distributed team together and help them work effectively as a team.
Excellent. My final question is about your future predictions then. If you put your future goggles on and say, okay, this is what I envisage is going to happen in the job market, in the skills market, in education, what are some of your core predictions for the next few years?
I think that they all stem from the fundamental observation that the world is accelerating. Things are changing faster and faster, and that's not going to stop. If you take that fundamental acceleration due to technology and globalization, you add to it online learning, which is basically, okay, so you have a need for lifelong learning that will increasingly be met by online learning. That means that anyone, anywhere can learn virtually anything, so long as they have the fundamental skills and knowledge to do it. And so I think K through 12 primary and secondary education is becoming increasingly important, because if you don't have a good, solid foundational toolkit of reading and writing, literacy, numeracy, social skills, then you're going to be left behind. So governments, I think, have to really spend more time making sure that the foundational primary education is solid. But then once you have that and internet access, your ability to learn anything from anywhere is going to be much higher. So that's going to democratize learning and skills development. And now with COVID and with remote work, anyone, anywhere is going to have an opportunity to get entry-level digital jobs. So Microsoft today estimates that about 40 million digital jobs exist. In the next 5 years, they expect another 149 million digital jobs. Well, think about this. If anyone can learn the skills to do those jobs from anywhere, and many, many of those digital jobs, because they're digital, will be able to be done from anywhere. It just equalizes the opportunity for knowledge and economic career advancement on a global basis. So it's not guaranteed. And so far, COVID has driven a greater gap between haves and have-nots. But maybe because of online learning and remote work, the lasting legacy of COVID is actually a more equitable world where more people have access to knowledge and more people have access to jobs.
Very good. That's a good place to stop. I have so many more questions, and I could go on for a lot longer. So maybe we can arrange another session sometime soon.
I would
Thank
love
you
to.
so much for your time, Jeff. That
Thank
was very fascinating.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.